Hey, thank you for joining me. But I need to know if you guys can hear me. You can hear me. Thumbs up there. Twyla, can you hear me? Say
Yeah.
yeah. Good. iPhone over
Yeah.
here. Can you hear
Yeah.
me? Okay. So who else? Samsung, that's you, right? Jacinta, that's your Samsung? No? All right, Samsung right here. Can you hear me? Yes or no? Because a lot of the stuff here is all oral, so you need to hear me really good, right? I can hear you. Oh, good, 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 good. I can see you right there. Good, and hopefully uh, oh, this is my.
Is it warm enough in here?
Yeah, it's okay. If it gets cold, my jacket's right. Hey, thank you, everybody. Now we're just gonna wait a few more minutes here, according to the waiting list, or the people have had that called in to show interest in this program tonight. We have 22 people. They're going to be joining us, hopefully. Maybe they're just having some issues with their feeds and that, but we have a total of 22 people are going to be online. And hopefully, this is going to be a trend. We'll have lots and lots and lots of folks tuning in to learn about the culture. When I say culture, the culture of individuals, groups, societies is in the language. You cannot have both. You can have language, but you got to have the language is in the culture of the people on that, right? When you start to really look at, the culture of indigenous people, you look at their language and how it works and how they view the world in their language and how they interpret the world in their language. And you start to look at the people not as those Hollywood feathers and powwow drum. You start to look at them as individuals with values. You start to look at them as individuals that have a language, a culture, a family structure, a political structure that's much, much different from mainstream political structures and families, right? So when you start to look at how the language works and some of the interpretations of that, you start to look inside those people and say, oh, okay, you know, because we've been really mainstream, westernized and so forth and that. And a lot of the knowledge that most folks have about indigenous people in their communities throughout North America, it's not based on a mutual respect of each other and visiting and getting to know each other. It's a very, very, very far apart separation of two worlds, and then these people, the mainstream. Hello. Oh, sister. Hey,
Hello.
come in. We
You're
just
live
got
with the
started.
classes?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, did my dad come here?
Wait, hold on. Give me 1 minute.
Oh,
You know
because
what's
he's waiting for your classes to
Who is?
start.
Who is?
My
What?
dad.
Oh, is he here? Oh, because there's something happening in the gym.
Oh.
What if he went over there?
I'll go check.
Yeah, go check if he's over there. Hey, I love your walking sticks.
One is up higher than the other. Oh, okay, I'll go.
Yeah, go check over there. Lost my thought. Okay, so when you start to look into the culture of those people and that, you really start to look at how they view the world. It's much more different than the Western society and how they view the world and that. When you start to look at the language, then you start to understand the culture of the people and that, right? And how they interact with each other, some of the political structures and that. And we'll go through these things as we have each class in that, right? And we'll have themes. Today's theme, I thought, we're into a new year. We're into 2026 right now. We're into about the second week. We, as indigenous people, and that we had to adopt a whole new culture, a whole new language. We had to learn different systems. We had to learn different institutions and how they work. And when I say institutions, I'm talking about schools. Oh, hey, okay. So we had a political system that we had to learn, right? Not only that, we as indigenous people had to learn a whole different language other than our own, right? we had to learn this new, no, only did we have to learn the culture of the new people that came into our homes, we had to learn their language, we had to learn their systems, we had to learn their values. We had to make huge adaptations in that, which just totally turned our. Oh my goodness, hey, hold on, I gotta say hello to these folks.
You recognize you.
Hello, Ian, have a seat over here.
You're speaking Blackfoot, I'm under orders.
Oh, yeah, come on in.
Where do I sit?
I'll
let you guess sit here, eh?
No, I don't have any guests. Most of my students are online.
Oh,
Yeah,
over there?
yeah, they're all up there. but-
Oh, I'll look at them.
Come and sit. Come and sit. Oh my goodness, good to see you guys.
Your tea?
This was.
Bud.
Huh?
Can I sit here so I can see you?
Yeah, sit right there. Take it there.
I'm monitoring this from up here.
Hello. So yeah, just sit there.
All right.
Just maybe just pull that chair around over there. If you
Oh,
want to
really?
sit by Marion.
Oh, sit right there.
Okay.
There.
Oh, hey, Happy New Year. My goodness.
Huh?
Can you make a run for me?
What do you want?
Put this in my vehicle.
Well, I thought you wanted to go to
Oh,
Tim
put
Hortons.
it there.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
that maybe a
Put it here for
storm
now.
wind.
Get it.
Are those yours or?
These are his.
Oh,
I
He
brought
told me to
them.
use these. No.
We went to go see Chris this morning and, he told him to use these walking sticks.
He's using one of
Second in
those
my
terrible canes. Those are-
yeah, because I had them. But you do, yeah, because
I need to push you
I
over
recovered
more.
it. And that's what I had to use. When you measure them and that, you're supposed to have them right on your belt line.
Just sit
And them right
tall.
here, not down here. So that your arm is in a perfect L. Wait,
Yeah.
hold on. Yeah, this way.
These
Okay,
are,
Oh, I
I'm
want this thing.
Oh, I have.
they're allowed to
Sorry
use
for
it.
that.
It's actually for the elders. We're gonna be moving it into the elders room that's just adjacent to the,
Yeah,
we're setting it up for later this month. It's gonna have a sewing machine, coffee, tea.
it's very comfortable in there.
We just take up two horses.
What's that?
We just take up two horses. Killing time.
Kill it.
Yeah, I told them about this morning, so they waited around in town
All
all day.
day.
So they could come to your class.
Hey, I'm glad you guys came. Hey, I have some special guests. I don't know if you guys can see them, but my uncle here
Hi.
is right here, and my auntie right there, and of course my sister. I don't know if you can see them. Say
I
hi.
think they could see.
No, they can't see. You have to
you
come
could
into
just see
the,
you.
yeah, only they can see me. So we have how many, so you can all hear me, right? I don't have to elevate my voice. Okay, that's good. So as we were saying that as Indigenous people, not only did we have to learn the systems, we had to learn your language, which was English and that. So when you think about the English language and that, it's not from here. It's not from North America. It is from England, right? If you speak Japanese and that, well, your language is from Japan, right? If you speak Hungarian, well, you're from Hungary. You speak the language of the country that you came from here, right? And we're very diverse in the sense that English is the official language of Canada. Not only that, but French, right? So we had to learn these new systems and that. So as Indigenous people and that, my goodness, there was a huge adaptation in that. Not only the culture, the people had to change, but our language. And we had to start looking at the world at their level, right? At their culture now. But we had to interpret this new world according to our language and that. So anything that was new, we didn't conform to the English language. We gave it new names in our language. And communities were born here. We gave them names like Lethbridge and Cardston and so forth and that. But as Indigenous people and that, we looked at these communities much differently. We gave them names according to our culture and our language, right? So new systems, the school especially, now that was something new. when they started establishing schools and that. When you think about the schools and that, England and France almost had 1,000 years head start before we started. So we had to learn from scratch because schools were something that were new. We were schooled much more different than that. And we'll explain that when we go into our schools were much different, right? It was a school of survival, really, you know. When you think about the antagonist out there, it wasn't a person or a government. It was the element that we would call winter. That was the protagonist in that. And we as indigenous people in that, we had to have skills to survive the winters, right? Because winters were harsh in that. So that was when you look at the buffalo jumps and you look at some of the stuff that's out there, and that it was all for survival. You go to head smash and buffalo jump skill. There's a lot of skills that were involved in that. Those were the schools that we needed to know. Women had to learn how to hide the animal, like take the hide off the animal and how to cut it up without the instruments that we have today, right? We never had knives. We never had those sharp instruments. So yeah, we were people that were Stone Age. We still had to use stone, sharp stones and stuff like that. And later on, they traded for obsidian, I think they called it that, but it was much more sharper rock, now, right? So we are the descendants of those people in that, right? All survival. Men had to learn the skill of hunting, know the elements out there, when to go hunting, what to hunt, and of course, not to get hurt, right? Those were the skills that we needed in that. So when that was put away, when those things were lost, right? We no longer that. So the language of the people that it kind of changed to much more different language. We didn't have to learn the skills how to kill anymore, hunt and gather. So we had to start learning the new styles of thinking. You know, the skills at a buffalo are now the skills of your school. You know, your institutions of colleges and universities, politics, and so forth, and that those were replaced by the skills that we needed to survive now. The new buffalo, they call it. It's a cliche, but yeah, those were our new buffalo now. So we had to learn the new language, right? When you think about schools, yeah, well, you know, the first school here in Lethbridge was Senator Buchanan, I do believe, or Galbraith. Now, Galbraith School, who knows Lethbridge well? You all from Lethbridge? All right. Right on the north side, right here, on kind of, I'm going to say, I'm not too sure what street that is, but there's a great big school on the north side called Galbraith, and it looks like a great big residential school.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah, that was one of the first schools.
8th, I think it's
8th Street, yeah.
Or
But that
8th
school
Avenue.
was probably born here in I want to say in the 20s, because there were some schools here in Lethbridge that relied on coal. They fed coal there, like to heat up the school and that was one of them. And if you were one of the other schools that was born here, one of the oldest Catholic schools was St. Basil's on the north side. Yeah. And those were some of the, so they were born here and that, but understand education had already existed in England. So all they had to do here was continue that, you know, that those systems and that. And, you know, so they already knew what to do, just build the schools. They know the system. We know how to teach and that. You put in your principals, put in your teachers and that, and you teach according to, you know, the beliefs and values of England, right? But but here, much different, right? So when they established schools here, you know, think of the mindset of the people that came, because they're not from here, right? They're from England. So when they came here, you know, their mindset was already probably in place by some of the, you know, their meetings with some of the more Eastern Indians, the Hurons, the Six Nations and so forth. So as they were establishing schools and that, so they already said, oh, we need to, and I'm not going to say this, but Duncan Campbell Scott, those of you guys who, you know, who went to school, you guys know the name Duncan Campbell Scott. You know, some of his mandates were kill the Indian, You know, so they established residential schools. So schools were born at the same time in the New World with different philosophies, and there was different mandates that were in place in that, you know, residential schools, which we went to, myself and my auntie and my uncle, much more harsh, right? And you know, so they it's almost like they forced that, you know, the westernization upon us. So we started going to school, not knowing that we had skills. We were much skilled. We were, how would you say, we were experts at what we did back in the day, in the days of the buffalo. You know, you and I, those of us who are indigenous in that, we are the descendants of those buffalo jump people. You know, the people that used the stones, they used the animal as our clothing, food, and our shelter, right? And it was those skills that were still here. You know, so we make those adaptations and that, so those skills are no longer needed and that. Now we speak English and that. And so and behold, within the last 100 years, now there's a really interesting statistic right now. In Canada, they measure the level of, well, there's different stages of the indigenous languages and that. There's strong, okay? When I say strong, I'm thinking of the Inuit, I'm thinking of the Cree, and there's one more, the Dene. 3 languages that are going to survive past 2035, which is what, just another 10 years from now, right? Yeah, so Blackfoot, you know, our people, you know, the 4 tribes, we are at, you know, endangered right now, 2026, endangered. So in the sense that we need to start looking at how we can revive the language in that. And I'm doing that right now. Anything that I do, it's recorded and it's in the, you know, it's in the mainframe of the computer and that. And you know, maybe 100 years from now, someone will say, hey, how do you say this word? Oh, check out the Friendship Center site. They got a guy named Julius Delaney who knows how to do stuff like that. So we are going to learn about the people that were once the navigators of this harsh environment we call Canada. Very harsh in the sense that winters start here probably October till about the end of March, right? We have 6 months out of the year, maybe 7 months out of the year, it's cold. And back in those days and that, oh, it must have been really, really cold and that. When you're cold at home, what do you guys do? You just go to the furnace and that, and you turn up your thermometer to 25 or, you know, and you're comfortable. Well, you can imagine, you know, the people that relied on the buffalo and the hunting and gathering, how did they keep warm? You know, like, you know, it must have been pretty harsh back then and that. And I've learned that during the winter months, one of the things that they had plenty of, what they would call gimstan, which is buffalo chips, gimstan. So they gather all these buffalo chips and that, they dry them in the sun. Well, you know, it's poop, right? And you burn that, and it doesn't smell, and it burns very, very gently and long, you know. I think it burns longer than a log. And you throw that into the fire, and it's just like, yeah. And you just use that for your winter heat, right? Right? You know, those were some of the things. So, you know, how did they know that? How did they know that you could burn that? So, like over the years of navigation, there's a thing within our culture, and it said, you mean that you really learn from the environment, you're aware, you navigate, right? Not only the animals, but where you're staying, right? All the elements and so forth, the cold, the wind, you know, the people back then were very, very smart scientifically as well, too. Like, how did they know to go grab that poop, well, let's burn it, right? So, you know, they navigated, so they were quite smart, very expert in the sense that, hey, can we burn this? Okay, let's do it. It's like, what do they call hypothesis, right? Let's burn it and see what happens. So they burn it, and so on and behold, it smokes. It burns just like coal. Got any more of that good stuff? You know. So it was a process of learning through the environment of that, right? And we learned how to use different rocks. We looked for rocks that are nice and round and that because our women did a lot of pounding, lots and lots of pounding, right? Yeah, you know, that making the pemmican and all that, but they didn't have the instruments, you just plug them in and let the blender do the work. You had to actually work, right? And they were saying our Blackfoot women back in the days of that, they were quite broad, right? They were short, very stout and broad, and they were quite, like in a sense, because of all that work they had to do, right? Scraping the hairs off the animals and that all day long, pounding, right? You know, so our women are quite stout and boy, I tell you, walking around like boy, really broad shouldered and probably short. And they're the ones that have to pack our teepees and it has to, because teepees nowadays are made out of canvas, right? You just roll them up and that you can just pack it into a small and put it away. Could you imagine a teepee that has 8 to 10 buffalo hides and you put it together? That's the amount of work that our women did, right? So they have to pack that, right? And where are you going to put it? We didn't have horses and that, so you have to think about, I probably have to pack it myself and that. So you put it on your back, or you would put it on your imita, and you say, "Otas some my imitags," or dogs back then. So you start using tribe voice. I'm not too sure what you call tribe voice. These things right there. And you put it on a tribe voice on your dog, and away you go. Hard working people back then, and that we are the direct descendants. So be proud. We are here because of the experts of our ancestors. They were able to navigate, they were able to recognize and use every available tools to them, whether it be rocks, stones, buffalo poop, so those things and that, because they were quite experts in their field. Look at lots of folks, right? Can you guys all hear me good? Eh? Interject if you have any questions on them. So we're going to go into our lesson. Since we're talking about years and, how is it that we were able to navigate, the nature, as we call it, back in the days without our calendars, without our clocks? Every day when you get up and that, this morning when you woke up, you knew it was Monday, right? Because the calendar told you it was Monday. And there's tasks that you do on Monday, right? So the calendar and your clock tell you what to do, right? You navigate your day according to the month, right? And we know special days. So this is my birthday, January. There's not anything special in that, but we plan around special vacations and that. We plan ahead and we make plans for Valentine's Day. Eh? So those things are in our calendar. And we know these things in the back of our heads and that. And we carry our phones like, oh, what time is it? Oh, it's time for supper. It navigates what to do every day, right? So I'm going to show you a way how we navigated as a culture of people back in the day before we had our months. So pull out your papers. You guys got your papers and that? So we have 12. We have 12 months. Blackfoot people that we had 13 moons. From moon to moon, there are 28 days. So from one moon to the next moon, there's 28 days. So we operated on a 13-month calendar moon, right?
Could you turn it this way a little bit? Can you still see?
Did you guys see that? Or is it too much? Did you guys see that?
Or
That's okay.
Wait, hold on.
Oh, I'm okay.
Can you take this somewhere?
Could they?
So,
see?
so we operated on a 12, I mean, today we are on a 12-month calendar, right? And I think the, the 12-month calendar that we adopt in that, those are the ones that we, is it a Roman calendar or is it a Greek calendar? Correct me if I'm right. Anybody know? Tracy, is it a Roman calendar?
I think it's a Roman.
Roman calendar, right? So, so January, what does that mean? Anybody know what January means? We just know it's January, it's the beginning of a new month. But what does it actually mean? If I say, oh, it's January, well, what does January mean? You have to Google January, right? We would have to look at what does January mean? Where does it come from? Is it a Greek god? Is it a person? Is it something they use like a weapon? Or is it a name of a person, right? In Blackfoot, January is called Omxiki-sum, which means the old moon, Omxiki-sum. So this moon that we see, and now who knows, because we've adopted, the 12-month calendars, we don't know that this could be another moon, because, like every so often in that there is what they call a leap year. We throw in a day in February to create a leap year. You know why? So that all our seasons are all the same. So winter is on the 21st, right? Spring is going to be on the 21st of March. Summer is going to be June, right? The 21st. And your fall equinox is going to fall on October the 20th. And so that's why we have the leap year in that, so that everything lines up in that. But us, we just follow the moons. It was just a calendar moon. And it's not a blood moon. It's not a harvest moon. It's just the moon, Omaxikiso, and it's in your papers and that, right? So what does that tell you is, this is the new year, right? But back in the day, probably Omaxikiso and that, we were probably huddled in our teepees, because this month, according to, to the old people, this is the coldest month of the year, this calendar moon, right? Supposed to be, but holy smokes, it seems to be the windiest, and now it's like plus 13 out there. Nature does not lie. That was one of the things that we understood as indigenous people, is that nature does not lie, right? And how do we know that? Well, when they wrote the treaties, what did they use as their bar? They said, okay, as long as the sun shines, the rivers flow, and the grass is green, we'll have these treaties. So they're forever, right? So, the people knew that, nature does not lie in that. So we rely on nature for our livelihood. And that's how we navigate ourselves in the world, based on the moons, right? Based on the calendar moons and that, navigating. So each day or each calendar moon, you are tasked with something that's going to allow you to do something for your survival. This particular month, Omaxikiso, and that, there's really no tasks other than eat and keep warm. Yeah, lots of eating and lots of keeping warm and that, because, oh my goodness, it is, the next month after that, and that we'll start to see, the change in the pattern of, the weather. So Omaxikiso, the old moon. Somebody was telling me too, there's another name for that, and I will spell it right here. And I don't know if this is accurate, but I've heard that this is another name for January. Katu, old Blackfoot word. What that means is it's a scarce. It means scarce moon. So there's two words to it, that if you were not prepared for the winter months as far as food, you could have a katu, meaning that you're very short in your food supply, right? It's an old Blackfoot word. So if you have lots and lots and lots in your refrigerator, or, if you have lots of food in your storage during that month, you'll have an old moon, right? That's what you would call it, because I got lots to eat, right? But if you have nothing to eat and you're short and you have to start rationing the food in your camps, then you have a katu moon. a very scarce moon. And this is probably something that probably happens kind of periodically over the thousands of years that we've been here, right? So when I say thousands of years, Blackfoot people, according to the DNA studies that have been studied, we were here 18,000 years ago. 18,000 years. So when you think about that, we're into 2026. We start counting the years according to the birth of Christ, right? So the year 2026, the Messiah was born, and that's what we count. But we were here 16,000 years before that. That's a long time, right? So who knows? Because you know, some of the animals that were here at 10,000 years ago were the mammoth, right? The mammoth were around 10,000 years ago, and here we are. What kind of animal is that? Is it edible? No. Should we use their poop to heat ourselves? And let's try. You know, so those stories existed in that where people were lost in that, and they rode this big animal, and they rode across a lake and that. So this moon, you stay home. You just stay home. You know, the calendar moon of old. This is what you don't want. But this is the moon that you prefer, the old moon. So what do you think they call that, right? What do you think about 18,000 years and that? I bet your story has it that the old folks and that knew that the moon was up here for thousands more years past than that, right? It's been our moon. This is the dinosaurs' moon exactly too. The moon that you see up there, well, the dinosaurs had that moon, right? You know, that same moon that you see there, they're building the pyramids at dark, right? And while they were building the pyramids, we were burning buffalo chips, right, to keep warm, right? So, you know, we were here a long time and I navigated this area. And here we're still here. Hey. Okay, so that's January. So think of the tasks, think of the people back in the day. We go into February. Automatically, you're already thinking, Valentine's. Hey, what am I gonna get my honey? What kind of chocolates or flowers can I get for mine? In Blackfoot, we call this an animal. Bite, and of course the moon, Gisu. Yeah, Bite Gisu, which means the eagle. Eagle moon. So what is that counting? Okay, so you know the old moon was cold, right? It starts to get rich. It just bumps down, and you try to keep warm and make sure you have plenty of buffalo chips in your storage so you can keep warm in that. When you get into the other calendar moon now, which is February, in our language we call it Bite Gisun. So what does that tell you? Okay, one thing is that the days are getting longer, right? Because the month before January, when you get there, you're going to start to understand, you know, the cycle of the moons and that, right? So with Bite Gisun and that, which means that we can see the sky a lot more during the day. So you start to see the eagles, right? It's warming up, and it's really, the days are getting longer. And probably we're out. We're starting to move away from our winter caps a lot more because there's warmer weather. And some of the animals are starting to wake up too, like the gophers, right? They start to wake up on that. Because I've seen gophers in Pueblo. And boy, oh boy, yeah, they start to kind of wake up and hey, what's happening? They start looking around, you know. And what I do is just run them over. Yeah, so you know, these animals that are sleeping, hibernating and that, they start waking up. So you start to notice, you know, more wildlife and that. So, you know, you start to look at your surroundings because we're navigating our area, right? We have to learn from the environment. And the animals tell us that too, and that because we know that the gopher hibernates. We also know that the skunk hibernates and that. So he started to wake up, right? So, you know, those things are indication that, hey, you know what? It's warming up. our days are longer and that, and of course, you see probably, the birds of prey a lot in that, right? They're up in the air and that, the apex predators of the air. So, so we navigate those things, we venture out a little bit more, right? Because we're in bee taking soon, right? Now remember, we don't have clocks. We never had clocks, and that's what something that was introduced to us by the Europeans and so forth. Another system that we were introduced. One of the things that I hear this lots is it means that we work for the sun. What does that mean? Well, the sun is our clock. The sun is our clock. So by the time the sun comes up on the east, we're already working. The women are doing their tasks. The men are doing their tasks. And that. The days are longer, so your work is much longer. And when it sets, your day's over. All your work that you've done in that. Because we don't have flashlights, right? And there's only a full moon that comes every so often in that, right? It's a full moon for about 5 days. Then after that, it's total darkness, right? So we rely on the sun for activity, right? We need to know that it's in February, right? Because the sun's not gonna be up very long in that, but the days are gonna get longer, right? Bee taking. So, activity is a little bit more. Our workers are working hard. They're preparing themselves and that so forth. Which brings us to March. March is Sa'e Gisu. And this is called the duck. The duck moon. Duck. So Sa'e Gisu is March. Sa'e, okay? So out of the 3 months that was so far in that, 2 are devoted to animals in that, right? So this animal is now home. It starts to come back in droves. So what does that tell you as a group of people, right? Well, we know that, it's warmer. We know from the previous month that our days are getting longer. With the arrival of the Sa'e, the duck, the rivers are now melting, right? It's warming up so that our rivers and our coulees, the backwaters, they're all melting, right? The rivers, it's warming up in that. So, the rivers in that in March, when you start to see that animal, oh my goodness, hey, we can move away from our wintering areas, which is the river valleys. Red Crow chose the reserve to be where it's at because, right over here by the Belly River, that was our wintering grounds, right? You guys know where Thunder Chief is, the gas station? All the way down to that old wooden bridge that's called, where the long time school. What's that area called? Is there a name for it? Anyway, it's an old wooden bridge that's in behind the airport. There's an old wooden bridge. That was that whole area that used to be a wintering ground. Story has it, and I heard the stories that winters weren't harsh down there. It wasn't cold. Somehow they were able to bunker down there, lots of trees, and it wasn't that cold. So when you start to see the ducks, hey, let's move away from the river valleys. We can go up a little bit more there. Why? Because the rivers are going to get deep, right? When you start to see the thaw, when you start to see the ducks and that, there's a lot of melting, but also in the mountains too. And our rivers start to rise and that. So you got to move away from the river valleys on higher ground. So, so they navigated this area and that. So, mornings when you wake up and you sing, this is just, it's a duck moon and the ducks are here. We can hear them, right? I think we need to start packing our stuff in that because the rivers are going to rise. We need to go up into higher ground. So that's what they did. Because nature does not lie, right? What's happening right now, ducks don't migrate anymore. Even our geese, they stick around here. For some odd reason that they should have been gone, right? There should have been no ducks, no geese, nothing. But here we are at the Henderson Lake. There's thousands of ducks over there.
Yeah, I was gonna say Nicholas Sharon this weekend, we're biking around it. There was some geese sitting on the
Yeah, yeah.
ice.
And when you go to that beach top, you know, there's that lake by
Yeah.
deep top, there's just like all these geese and ducks.
Mhm.
And, you know, so that tells you in a sense that, you know, nature has kind of changed, you know, so they sort of, are they adapting to the new weathers that we have now? You know, so maybe
There must be.
this is my take. You know, here we can say our rivers are not as polluted as some of the rivers south of the border, right? So I'm guessing they stay here because our rivers are still clean. Where they migrate to, you know, there might be lots of pollution over there. You know, there's a lot of industrial waste in some of the ponds that they're going to, because, you know, they go to Arizona, right? And they go to, you know, areas and that, and there's a lot of industrial waste and that. So who knows about the rivers that they're going to? And just stay here. We just got to keep warm and that. At least the rivers are still clean. That's just my take. Not necessarily just warming up. Still cold for me, right?
They don't like Trump.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe they don't want to pay any tariffs then. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, so you know, in a sense that Saagi Sumi, that's the month of March, right? And it tells you, you know, that, you know, the ducks are back, you know, the weather. So in order to navigate, you know, the area that where we live and occupy that, we have to understand nature because we are part of nature in that. We rely on nature to tell us when to move, when to hunt. And then here's something I've learned. March. This is something that was told to me by somebody at the Head Smash to Buffalo Jump. In March, they would have a controlled prairie fire. They would literally and deliberately burn the grass in the prairies. I can see bands, I mean, it'll start burning and until it just runs out, right? You know, maybe from one river valley to the next river valley. And it will literally burn in March, right? Now, what's going to happen is the next month after that, you start to begin to see rain, right? With all that fresh rain, what comes fresh grass. And there's nothing more delicious than having fresh grass for the buffalo. Rather than chasing a buffalo north, they come to us, right? Fresh grass. Oh my goodness, where did this come from? You know, and that was the trick. Burn the grass and the buffalo will come back to us.
Maybe that's how they found out the patties, the buffalo chips.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
long
maybe they were
hair.
burning the grass and that. And who knows, there was big mounds of buffalo chips in there, looking at how the grass was burning along with the buffalo poop.
Yeah.
And they probably say, you know what, we can take that poop and bring it home because it burns, right? So that's probably what they did. You know, it just through that, you know, that
Through their
trial and
burn.
yeah, the trial and error. You know, maybe they tried moose poop. Let's not do that. Can we try deer poop? They're little pellets. Let's try those. No, don't. So Saagi Sioux.
Little fire starters.
So that's March. Okay, so we're doing animals, right? These animals are very indicative of our moons. The next one is Matsi Kapisa Gisu, which means the frog. Moon of the frog. Matsi Kapisa Gisu. It's in April, right? And April is, of course, the frog moon. When you start to hear the frogs, and you know it's warmed up and that, because the frogs start to sing, they start to croak and that, and you know that, you know, it's the days are longer and longer and longer when you start to hear this animal, the frog moon. And those of us who live in areas where there's marshes and when there's, you know, like there's coulees of water and that, yeah, I can lay testament to this because in April I do hear them because I live in an area where there's two coulees and there's water that runs just right in the middle. And at nighttime, oh, you just open my window and hundreds of them. No, all they do is just croak oh, until you open the door, just dead silence. He said, oh, what's going on? Then you shut the door, open your window, and then they start singing. So, these are animals that tell us, boy, there's warmer weather. You know what? There's no more ice. Absolutely no more ice in the waters and that. So though, the indigenous people of the Blackfoots and that, we knew that we no longer have to go down to the coulees anymore, right? We're in the prairies. We can spend a lot of our time in the prairies in April, right? Then you start to hunt probably, so our young men are hunters and that, they're probably navigating, okay, let's go out into the herd and let's see who we can hunt, right? The buffalo eating in. And one of the things too is that we have to navigate what animals to kill, right? We don't want to be killing all the females. We want to kill a young buffalo bull, right? Because if you start killing off the females, and well, your population is going to deplete, right? So they were quite very selective in how they hunted and that. So there's always maybe an old bull, an old man bull, right? I'll kill that one first. So those animals were very selective in that. If a buffalo had a calf, you don't kill that, right? So very selective in the sense that, so those navigations with our men really had to be selective in that. You just don't just shoot an arrow into the herd of animals and that. You're very selective. You look at the animals and okay, which one would be good? You look for a big animal because what if we need a new teepee, right? So you look for a big bull and that, right? And the bigger the bull, the warmer your teepee. So you look at those animals and that because not only are these animals going to be our shelter and that, but think of the work our women have to do, right? I give you a bull like an animal. You don't have the luxuries of going to Marshalls or any place for your needles and what you have, what is it that nature that allows you to do that and that? So you look for rocks, to scrape, those type of things. Our women were very, very smart in a sense. They were experts, right? If I wanted new shoes, it's the women that have to make my shoes, right? If I wanted a new shirt, well, the women have to make that. And of course, you don't have tapes and measurement and that. So it was quite the tedious task in that. And women, my goodness, one of the most hardworking people in our communities were women. Hey, very reverent, right? And our camps relied on our women, right? They have to break camp and get all the things ready, and us men are just kind of standing around. What's going on? I need to. No, I'm sure we played a very important role in that. But it was a collaborative. It was very collaborative in the sense that our women and our men worked side by side, right? There was nobody that it was not a patriarch society where men, they sort of dictated. They just worked right alongside. In order for this thing to be a very sustained society, we relied on each other, right? And that's how it worked in that. And knowing the calendars, right? Hey, it's the frog moon. We need to start doing stuff with that. Let's start hunting and that. Let's start gathering and so forth and that. Because the sun is longer, all right? The days are longer, so our tasks are longer and that. We're able to get things done a lot more. So it's always important when I start to do Blackfoot. We did this a long time ago in September, October. We did animals. And I thought, why are we doing animals? Animals are our sort of like we learn from our animals. We rely on our animals and that, but also too, we understand, what's happening in nature based on the activity of the animals, right? And in our names, we have names that are for animal. What's your Blackfoot name?
Oh, my name is Weasel Moccasin.
Yeah, Weasel Moccasin are, our last names, Chief Body, Hoof, Eagle Tail, Feathers, they're all animal based in that, right? So it's important to know, these animals and that's when you have a name, and so it's usually an animal or a behavior, like a Saint-Yac. So those type of names and that, right?
That's not
So it's
my
important
name.
to know the animals and that because we learn from them, right? Well, what month did we say this was?
Matsi
April.
gapisagi su.
Matsi Kapisa.
Matsi gapisagi su.
All right, now this one here, I always,
April, May.
what's that?
Oh, I was just saying, April, May.
We're in, yeah, so then we're May, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now this one here is, I really have a hard time saying. Be, ski, ski, sa, do, si. Do, si. Do, si. Which means literally the flower blossom. That's how you spell blossom, eh? Flower blossom moon. So May, which literally means the flower blossom moon. So in May, you start to see all the flowers blooming, the purple crocuses, mainly gyapyapis, what you call them. So you start to see, the flowers in the meadows and the hills, the wild rose and so forth, the sunflowers, the flower blossom, that's May, right? Is it nature-based? Yeah, it's what happens in nature. So those individuals who are tasks of, what moon is this? It's just the flower blossom. How do you know that? Well, what's that? That's a flower. So it allows the people now to work a lot more. Now, Duxie is a lot more. It's in the sky lots. You have about a 12, 13-hour moon now. So there's lots of work with that. And with the flowers and that, lots and lots of sunny days, right? Because you need photosynthesis for the flowers and that. And that only happens when you see the sun, not Duxie, right? So we know that. And the people navigated that, So, these were people that really had to navigate nature because, we're already into the 6 months already, right? No, January, February, March, April, May, that's 5 months, right? So there's lots and lots of work that we're doing. The women were probably just work. From the time they get up in the morning, it was work, right? There was no pause in that. There was no overtime. There's no, okay, I need a coffee break. Because they needed to work. It was a must. And we alongside, we supported our women and we worked right alongside our women at that too. Navigating, right? Making sure that our camps were safe. Because like when you think about the people that were in that, nothing in our stories indicate that we were being overrun by another group. Our stories don't run like that. So we're not fearful of other groups coming in to annihilate us and that. Whereas in Europe, right, there's always that fear of war, right? The Romans took over England and so forth and that. There was always a lot of one country overrunning another. That's the history of Europe and so forth, right? But not here. The antagonist that we had to worry about was the element that we call winter, right? That was the antagonist. And if you're not prepared for the antagonist of that, he's not going to care what color you are, how old you are. He's going to freeze you to death, really. That's the truth. So we relied on these things, right? So we can work. So that's May. Flower blossom moon. You guys remember about 2 years ago, there was a movie called Killers of the Flower Moon. There was an actress named Lily Gladstone. Yeah, Lily Gladstone, and she won the Best Supporting Actress, right? Now, they were, what tribes were they? Remember? They were
something.
not Kiowa, not Comanche. Wow, what was their tribe?
I can't say their name, Agapi or something like that.
But anyways, their tribe, does anybody know what tribe they were on that movie? Were they Kiowa? But there were Plains Indians and all that, Plains. Anyways, their moon in May is the same moon that we have for ours. Isn't that something? So their calendar moon in May is our calendar moon for May. The same. So which indicates, I think most indigenous people in that What's that? Jacinta, you're mute.
It's the Osage.
Osage,
Osage.
Osage, yeah, the
Osage, yes.
yeah, the Osage, yeah. So, there were a Plains tribe and all Plains tribes in Canada or North America, from right here, from the Rockies all the way to Texas, we were a buffalo culture. We say, we shared the same culture. Buffalo was our means, right? Like the Cheyenne, the Mandan, the Sioux, the Kiowa, and of course the Osage and that. So they must have had a similar calendar moon count like us, right? Because they didn't have a calendar, we had to adapt as well too, like all indigenous people, right? It's pretty interesting to compare our calendar moons to the eastern tribes and that, where it's the woodland, where it's cold there maybe 10 months, right? Or even our calendar moons of the Inuit. They must have had a calendar moon too in that, right? Interesting to know because the calendar moon dictates your movement and your work, right? What you need to do with that, right? So those were some of the things that we relied on. Okay, so we're at Mississauga. All right, June. I love June because school's out. We get to get out of boarding school and we get to go home. So June is
I thought it was Awagasu.
no, Misamsutam.
Oh, the
Misamsutam, which means
rain.
the long rain.
Oh,
That's June. Misamsutam. Yeah, Misamsutam.
Oh.
So, expect long rains in June. Has that happened? Yeah. So think about 2005, the year 2005. We had the flood of the century. Remember that? Where this whole valley down here was just completely on just submerged water, right? That's 2005. Think back to a flood remember the flood of 64? I think I was about 3 years old. We lived in the whole homestead where my uncle and I, we all kind of got raised in the old agency area. We got flooded in. All around us was water. It was just me and my sister Emily, and my dad and my mom. We had to get rescued. That was back in June too, that time. What's that?
He rescued you.
I was just a little boy that time, but I remember there was a lot of folks that were there. We were standing there looking across, this river or this water and that. There's a whole bunch of people on that side. And they started coming with their boats. And that boat started kind of floating away and that. And they brought it back and they put a rope on it. And then that's how they rescued us that time. I think I was about 3 years old. So
Mike Keely was, I don't know how he got a boat with a motor.
yeah.
He's the one that went to get you guys.
Oh, it was a boat with a motor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think the first boat that came, they were trying to come across, but the river was too swift, right? They kept floating away or something, and they pulled them back with it. And then somebody actually came. I remember it's just me and my sister. What's going on? It was a flood, and it happened in June. In some suit.
I didn't see that coming.
What was it? Was that the year 1964? It was just me and my sister.
Diapers.
I wasn't in diapers. I think I knew how to use the washroom, but I remember I was just young. But that was a flood that happened in June, and of course in '95, and again in 2013. Remember 2013? In June we had Misamsuta, and it just about canceled the Calgary Stampede. Remember that? Yeah, 2013. It rained for like a week straight. All it did was rain, and then the Saddle Dome was completely submerged in water, and the whole Stampede grounds was in water. And of course, the fort was underwater, and everybody was just, they weren't worried about the flood. They were just worried about the Calgary Stampede, Yeah. They were hurrying like crazy. Oh, we got to have a parade. We got to have a pancake breakfast. What's going on? June, some suit though. So think of those individuals that were, right? We understood, we navigated, we knew that the month of June, you're going to get lots of rain. So, there's probably not a whole lot of activity, as far as work and that, because you don't want your hides, all the stuff that our women work so hard to be saturated with with the rain and that. So they probably camped in areas where there was a lot of shelter, trees and so forth and that. Maybe the rivers have, receded a little bit in June, with the snow melt and that. Maybe they went back into the valleys for a little bit, away from the rain. But who knows? There's some street that was flood, right? You're not gonna go down there. So, it's something that's very, when you think about the people back there, how did they navigate these things in June? Okay, Misambasudo. We are, how many months into our year now?
6.
6. Now we're halfway there in that, right? So now we're into July. Now this one here is another indicative of nature. You say, no, I'm not, but Okunuki. Okunuki. This is a long word. U-C-A-C. What's it A-C? Okunokis. This should be plural. Okunokis. What's it A-C? What does that mean? This is when our blueberries, our Saskatoons ripen. What are my dates here? Are ready for picking. Yeah. So July, Okunokis, that's our Saskatoons. What's it date? See. So what does that tell you?
Otherwise, go pick up.
Yeah. So now they're ripe to go pick. So this is the time our women are very, very busy. They're out picking berries because this is one of the most important staples for our winter foods. And they mix them in with their dried meat, right? To make that good sakyaks. We call it pemmican. Yeah, eh? Another word that they use is mugat, right? Pemmican. Yeah, so that's very indicates it's nature, right? When it tells our women, let's be prepared. What month is this? Oh, well, what moon is this? We need to let's start working, and our women are constantly picking berries. Now imagine you're thinking right now, if you're gonna go pick berries, you're already thinking about a tub or some kind of container, right? You're gonna bring what did they use? We didn't have those plastics, those containers and that. So they must have used some kind of, they would have to devise that, some kind of a sack, right? To make yourselves a sack and then you put your berries in them and away you go and then spill them out and that, let them dry, right? Yeah, it was quite tedious. When you set them to dry, one of the things that I did mean, we made some pemmican one time about 4 summers ago. We bring them all in during the day, and we'd spill them out on a big table during the day, and the sun would dry them. And my task was just to sit there and just chase flies away all day. Yeah, we were in Troy and that, we chased Troy out there and that, you would sit there and just chase flies, because flies were not to get into our berries. And we let the sun in, it's about a week, and our berries are good for chopping up, making pemmican. So Okunokis, is it all nature? Go back to February. Pita, Sa'ed, Matsi Kapusa, right? Long rains, flower blossoming, right? All nature based on that. So who can tell me what June means? What does May mean? Those calendars don't really indicate that. It just tells us that it's fair. When you get into May, oh, Mother's Day. Oh, we got to pick up something for Mother's Day. April, okay, what's Easter? We think about Easter and that, but it's almost consumerism, right? It kind of tells us, you got to go spend some money on these special days and that. But these are task oriented. It tells us what to do, where to find them. It moves us, right? It moves these people in that. Because we weren't lazy, I tell you that. Hardworking. That brings us to August. Oh my goodness. I hate August. Honestly. So August is now this is another one.
It's
What?
so hot now.
Bucky Beast. Again, U, C, D, C. Which is date C. So Bucky, the first word, your prefix of the word, which is date C, means our choke cherries are ripened. All right. So we start to pick choke cherries in August, right? So in August and that, our tasks for our women and that is to start collecting buckkeepers because we make cakes, right? They're bucks and then they start to pound and they start to crush the choke cherries to make pies, right? It's another winter food in that. I remember my grandma Gumaki and that boy, she'd sit there literally on her steps and it had like a rock. That bucks and it had like a sack in that thing. And then he would make pies. And you put a little bit of, I don't know what kind of grease in that to keep it together. Dry it and you eat it, but you don't eat too much of it. Don't eat too much of that. They're always telling me, "What's stuck so you think so it's kind of your stuff. You always kind of have to kind of don't eat too much of that stuff in that. Oh, I tell you, right?
I got a story on that.
Oh, okay. They're always telling us, "How much stuck so you this cannot see." Have lots of blueberries, but that other stuff, you just eat them sporadically. Don't eat a whole bunch, otherwise you'd be in trouble.
I'm stuck.
Yeah. We say you have zucchini soup, and that's what it is.
Yeah. That's
You know.
Indian word, Wakinesa.
Zucchinis, yeah, you get that, it's like, I need a next slide, so. So that's bucky piece, what's the date sheet? When choke cherries ripe. All nature, right? Every one of our calendar moons is all based on nature. Why? Because we as indigenous people, we have to navigate nature because nature sustains us. It keeps us alive. It keeps us warm, and it keeps us, so that we're full, right? We're sheltered in that. And making those observations, knowing what calendar moon's next and that, it allows us to create, it's a movement within our communities, right? It makes our communities very alive in that. There's lots and lots of work, lots of tasks and so forth in that. And when the sun goes down, of course, our days are starting to get a little shorter, right? So the work that was being done was probably back in the days where our suns were longer. You start to understand that in August, oh my goodness, our days are getting shorter. So we need to start thinking about an element that we call winter is going to be coming up pretty quick. And those are the guys who are in August and that, you start to say, I got to buy school clothes. You got to go back to school and so forth and that. But back in those days and that, there's a preparation that needed to happen. And that was winter, and these things needed to be done according to our calendar moon, right? Okay, so we are into September. All righty. September is another animal. Yeah, there you go.
Almost 3 months ahead.
Awakasikisum, which means literally the deer. The deer moon. Now, this one here, I did research just a little bit. When you think about maybe the buffalo, the Eni, are now starting to migrate a little bit further south than that. So the abundance of these animals, they don't really shelter themselves, like some other animals and that. The awakasi and that, they're pretty resilient animal. You could see them during the dead of the winter in the fields eating and that, right? They start digging up, stuff they're going to eat and that. So maybe that's what we see, we see a lot more awakasi during the month of September. We start to see this, the movement of our animals shifting, right? The abundance are more the awakasi as opposed to Eni, our buffaloes and so forth and that.
Is it mating season?
And there's also mating season, yeah. Yeah. Because in March, of course, March and April and that, we all have our calves, all the animals and that start having their calves and that. So You know, so all the mating starts happening here, right? The Alakasi. Yeah. So that's our demu, September. You know, so you know, there's a shift in animals, the abundance probably. So when you start to think of, you know, what's happening in those months and that, we rely on nature though. Well, the ducks are still here, so it's still warm, right? But in September, automatically you're already thinking inside your mind, I gotta get school clothes. You know, I gotta get some lunch bags, some lunch, you know, all that stuff. That's what tells us what to do. That's our navigation of our calendars and that, right? It tells us, you know, Mondays you gotta go to work, Tuesday and Friday, yay, TJ, yep. And then Saturday, Sunday you rest, right? Okay. Where are we?
September, October.
October. Now there's different ways of saying this and that, but this is my favorite. Sa X, and this is E do ma da fu. Sa X do ma da fu, which literally means the ducks move. This is when they move in October. Yeah, sa X do ma da fu. Yeah, that's something that's kind of another one too is that ni beasts when the leaves fall in October. Yeah, so ni beasts is another one. So ni beasts uti denisi. What's it denisi? When they fall. What's it denisi? Yeah, what's it denisi? So that's two ways of saying that. But what they've done is they combined all these events that are happening and they've come up with this calendar moon. They're very simple. And they say, mu ga du si. Mu ga du si, which literally means the autumn moon. Autumn is the Western way of saying fall. So what they've done is they've combined all the events that are happening in October. The ducks are migrating and the leaves are falling. And that happens in autumn. So they came up with Mugatusi. And that's the most common one they use right here. This literally just means the autumn moon. Right? But if you go back to Sa'ek, does that happen? Yeah. I remember that in October and that it just be our skies would just be black. And all you hear is quack, quack, and all of the, you know, the geese and that, you just hear them going and that. And that was indicative, you know, okay, change of weather. Something's happening and that cold weather is coming. Why? Because, you know, these animals, they migrate. They go south, right? You know, and another animal we don't hardly see during that time are the gophers. You don't see them on the road anymore, right? They're in the ground because they know that winter's coming. And, you know, some of the animals that you see lots of are gone. And you notice we don't have flies.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Eh? There's no more flies or, you know, it's kind of insects like ants and that, right? Well, you don't see them in October and that, right? But you know, it's getting cold. Mugatus, right? So there's two ways of saying October. So, you know, there are people of old, they knew that there's something happening within our weather. It's getting cold. And guess what? Their days are getting longer. I mean, shorter. And nights are getting longer. Right? So that's your October. You know, it's very indicative in that. So each month really tells those people of an activity, right? What needs to be done in that. It moves them, right? Going into what? November. November is which means cold weather. This should be an E. Arrives. Goats. Does that happen up in November? Yeah. It really does happen, right?
You have to
So,
cross the T.
way back, what's that? Goats. Yeah.
You have to cross the T.
Where?
Cold weather.
Cold.
Weller.
Oh, yeah, right here. See, I can spell Blackfoot really well. It's my English. I don't dot my I's or cross my T's. Everything's in capital letters. But
Yeah, he spells it really good.
anyways,
Knows how to
so
spell.
November is cold weather arrives. Goats. So think about the people that were living in teepees and that. They're starting to move to the wintering grounds. So you start to move away from the prairies, right? And all your gatherings of your buffalo chips and the food that you prepared are now going into your wintering camps, right? You start to move into your wintering camps. There's not a whole lot of activity other than the fact that, you're going to choose where you're going to camp for the winter. So they choose, all through the river valleys and that, right? That's including the rivers up north, right? The North Saskatchewan River, the Red Deer River, and all, they're all the Bow River, so we chose this river right here, the Bloods. I think Siksika, must have camped along the Bow River, right? Piikani, I don't know where they would camp, because they're more at the foothills, Piikani. Interesting to know, eh? I'll have to ask a Piikani. So November, so you can understand, the movement of the people and that they are navigating, they know that weather is coming, inclement weather, first snow probably, or it's happening, you got your snow, which brings us to the last moon of our calendar. And this is me, some, me, goo, goo. Misami goo, goo. What does that mean? Long nights. December, last month. Did we have a long night in December? Yeah, we did. Especially the 21st, and it was the longest night of the year, winter solstice. And they understood that. We already knew that one of the calendar moons was going to be a long night. Me, some, me, goo, goo. Me, sami, goo, goo. Goo, goo is your night. And this is long. Me, sami, goo. So those were our calendar moons. We just adapted into what the Roman calendar, the 12 months and that. We just threw in our moons and that. But there was 13. There was a time when there was 13 and that. But I think that, the name, which one of the moons and that was the 13th moon. Or somewhere along the line, we lost the moon. So we just adapted into what we would call a 12-month. Yeah, that's another one that they use for December is Omkatui Kistiku, which means the big holy day, which is December the 25th. So we just adapted into like the Western culture of that. Because December the 25th is Christmas, right? And those of us who went to residential school, and I tell you, right from December, we went to church every day, Monday to Fridays, and boy, it was all devoted to the churches and that. So we knew that December the 25th was very significant within the churches and that. So they called it the big holy day. Yeah. I remember we used to fight over being an altar boy because we get to sit in front. Eh? Yeah. But that was that, so those are the calendar months and that. And then when you think about how we adapted to the calendar moons and that, within each of the calendars, there's special days, right? Let's go back to January. There's not really any special day in that, right? We're just January, long month. When you get into February, then we have to have Valentine's. Wait, that's something new. We never had Valentine. So we have to develop a language. We have to develop a day to describe that, right? This is our love day. right? The welcome and what's it, or love day.
Love.
Love. Yeah. And then March, is there anything that's, well,
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day, which is something, this, we used to just call it the Green Day. Just see what we used to go the Green Day, because, the St. Pat's, they have their shamrocks, they're green, right? So we just call it the Green Day. That's the word we came up with, because they celebrated with
It makes
shamrocks and leprechauns and what else?
Yeah, because you had to wear green.
Yeah, unless you get pinched, right?
Yeah.
So, so that was something that so we have to name each of these things based on what's happening. What's significant, right? Valentine's, we all love each other. Oh. You just go straight down, Gratinica, almost to the front.
What about this?
So,
That's the
no, that's the
girls.
gym, ski nuts. Go this way, it's all lit up.
We can sit.
Only my uncle. So, so each of those special days in those calendars, you have to name Easter. We used to be a very, very significant day, the day we went to residential school. It was, with the death of the Messiah and 3 days afterwards, right? So it was a kind of a holy type of day in that. But what had happened is that we started to be replaced by an Easter egg.
Yeah.
Right.
Miraculous.
Yeah. So, it was very significant. So when Easter came, there was a lot of Easter egg activity, right? So we just call it Uwakisuku, egg day.
Oh, wow.
Uwak.
Oh,
Yeah, because there was a lot of eggs that were, it's like Easter Bunny. What's his name? Well, the Easter Bunny comes to your
Jesus.
house and it drops off. So we just call it Uwakisuku, something significant of that day and that. What was society doing in that? Well, they were really having an egg type of day and that they would drop them off. That. So it's a very descriptive of what's happening in that. So that's May would be Mother's Day.
Mm.
Yeah.
Or
So
my birthday
on your birthday. Oh, happy birthday.
in May.
In May, yeah. So, May is Mother's Day. So, just didn't know any extext. This is when our mom's big day. And June is Father's Day. Didn't know any extext. This is the one day devoted to your mothers and that. Whereas us and that, boy, every day we really acknowledged our women. Because think of the hard work that they do there. So we kind of acknowledge them. We have in our culture Aki Paskan, which is a dance that was danced during the days of the buffalo in honor of our women. And we'd sing these songs and that. It's like a round dance, right? You guys know how to, just like a round dance and that. And our women, they would stand up and they would dance in a style of like the round dance, like this, right? Now, this is what I don't know, if they actually held hands or they didn't. And if you're kind of like you're tired and your knees are hurting and you're, and our women, they would just stand up and they would just dance in that one spot. And I've seen that Rosie Dayrider and Dunn were singing around dance. They just stood up over there and they just danced. They were just moving their heads and that. And those were for our women in honor, and we call them Aki Paskan. So when the round dance came, that's what they started round dancing and that, right? So do we have that? We call it Aki Paskan, our women dance. So we honored our women to have in the days of the buffalo. Now, who knows how long these songs are in that? Maybe way back, right?
Did you find it?
Yeah, so those were some of the things that we had to do. And then we had to have, of course, 7 day a week. I'm just going to share with you real quick. Each of the communities, Guyana, Sitsiga, and Pigani have their own 7 day a week. Okay. So Sunday, you say Natuikstiku, which means the holy day. Natuikstiku, that was Sunday. Okay. Monday, you call it Sikatuikstiku, which means the day after the holy day, or you rest after the holy day. This is Sikatuikstiku. Tuesday, day number 3, which means 2 days after the holy day. Okay, literally. So you can understand who had a lot of influence in everyday lives back then, right? 3 days all devoted to the churches, right? And then our fourth day, which is Wednesday, we call it Itawano Tsuki, which means the half day. Itawano Tsuki means Lethbridge. There was a time here in the city of Lethbridge, right at noon. It's everything just shuts down. All the businesses, Kresge's, Eaton, Sears, Metropolitan, and Woolworth, they all just shut down right at noon.
To rest.
I don't know. You know what? I always ask, why did they shut down at noon? Because on Fridays they open till about 8, a little bit longer.
Oh.
Yeah, just to make up those hours and that. So Fridays they're open just a little bit longer.
Oh.
So that was a community. So you know, our people that were kind of looking around. What's today? Watuano Tsuki, which is Wednesday. Yeah, and it was something that happened. It's not like that anymore. But it was a half day at one time in the city of Lethbridge. Everything, banks, right? If you wanted to go to the pool hall, it's shut down. If you wanted to go to the taverns and that, everything just shuts right down on
The
Wednesday.
bathrooms.
The bathrooms, you know, the ones at Gulf Gardens, yeah, they just shut them down. Yeah, so now that's Wednesday. So we had a descriptive, we had our own, so we didn't conform to the, you know, the English language, and I'd say Monday. We had our own interpretation. Thursday, we call it Tsunag, but that was ration day. And then when the Indian agent no longer gave out rations, Thursday is called Igatestino, old ration day. Itestino means that's where we received our rations for the week. So all the community members from Kaina would all go down to the old agency or the Indian agent offices. So you can still see that old office, like the trees and that, just on the other side of the old agency hall. Yeah, the building finally fell in the 70s. So you go to the agency office and you get your rations every Thursday. So, you know, you pack up your wagons and your horses, especially if you live way down in the Carson area, and you start to come get your rations and you go back home. But what is in the rations, by the way? Just to be, you know, probably flour,
Yeah.
flour, rice, macaroni. Back in the day, yeah. So these foods were very foreign to us, and that because you know we've never had macaroni, right? We've never had rice or even flour, right? All this stuff is all foreign. Even sugars, right? We didn't have sugars back in the day. So all these stuff that we ate and that's new. Even some of the meat was, you know, some of the meats that we ate were now pig, pork, right? We never ate pig. Well, pig is a non-indigenous animal, and cow, right? So all these things were introduced to us, and so that was part of our rations and that. So you can imagine some of the old guys, spaghetti, oh, what's this? And they call it essene, where you break them, yeah. You know, so they describe the spaghetti as, well, you break it and then cook it. Oh, essene, yeah. So they describe the spaghetti, the action of breaking it in half and putting it into the pot. Essene. Very descriptive, right? Okay, so that was Thursday. Friday, fish day, Mamikasiku. Yeah, so now we're going back to the churches, right? Because every Fridays, rest assured, either you're the Anglican or the Catholic residential school, you're going to have fish. We had fish on Friday, rest assured, every Friday. Fish and chips, yeah. So that we call that Fish Day Friday. And we still use those days of the week. You know, they were developed way back in the day, in the early 1900s and that. And which brings us to Saturday. Which, what does that mean? The day before the holy day, or the holy day is about to arrive. So out of the 7 days, 5 days are devoted to the churches and 2 community events, right? Which is the ration day and the half day, Wednesday, Thursday. But other than that, you know, it's a holy day, 2 days after the holy day, 3 days after the holy day, fish day, right? The day before the holy day. So, you know, it's sort of 7 days out of the week. The churches were very influential in our calling of our days of the week. So that's it. Does that kind of give you an insight as to where we came from? You know, we were the navigators. We were the people out there. We are the descendants of hundreds of years of these harsh environments that we lived at, right? We had to navigate and know the environment of that. We had to study the animals, study the stars, you know, the constellations and that. Because you know that like the Big Dipper, every month it moves, right? It's seasons and that, you know, it all depends on it. And we have the morning star and the evening star, right? So those things and that were very, in a sense, experts in our own environment. We navigated and we lived. And here we are. We're still here, and we just have to revise our language and tell our folks and that, oh, you know, we are here because of the expertise of our ancestors and that. They're very, very smart. It's very easy too, right? Yeah.
We live in the winter in our tents. We had no house. And then the old agency, we had a log house with no flooring. It's a dirt floor.
Yeah.
And your mom would stay there. Our beds are just straw.
Straw, yeah.
It can-
Toch that we
Yeah.
wouldn't see for. Yeah.
And the only time we get, I don't know how many blankets we use, but in the morning they put the stoves in, the wood, get it going.
Yeah.
We live in that.
Yeah, I remember. I grew up we never had electricity. I grew up in that. I never had running water in our old house.
My mom used to get fleas from a sawdust stove when she was the youngest, so she had to go start it up. And she's like, I hated to be biting me all over.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I'm telling you.
Sorry.
Oh.
We're just at 7:00.
Okay, hey, so thanks, guys. So every 2 weeks, if you have any questions, it doesn't necessarily have to be what we're, you know, our lesson and not what we're doing. If you have any questions, if you were given a Blackfoot name, or you know of somebody who has a Blackfoot name, and you want to know how it's said or spelled, you know, just we'll have a question period. Okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did everyone receive the email with the worksheets on it? Excellent.
So yeah.
Perfect.
Hey, woo!
So we're going to be providing some take-home matching, and then we've got crosswords, and we're going to be doing word searches. I'm going to be bundling them up, and I'm going to send them out on Monday of next week, so you guys have something to do. And then the week after, when we have class, I'm going to be sending out stuff that is for the lesson. Yeah, we're going to be developing the curriculum as that. We're sorry about the break. Funding cuts nationally, and we're just going to try and roll with it. But we're not going to leave you 2 weeks without something to do. So we're also going to be trying to link up the former lessons that the Galt, Opakossin, Blackfoot Resource Hub, and Friendship had done a few years ago in a joint project. I just got access to them from the Galt, and I just got to make sure they're good, and we'll figure out the best way to do that. I'm probably going to throw them up on YouTube if everyone's okay with that, or I'll put them in a Google Drive, but I'll send all that information. These are available on the website for the Lethbridge Galt Museum.
Good, they're excellent resource.
He made them.
I'm not just me, but there was a group of us that made it's through the Galt.
And they're free, and I
And they're
recommend
free.
getting both
Yeah.
because they're different.
Do you recognize that TP?
Yo, man. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, these are, just go to the Galt and they're free. Yeah, and they come with flashcards.
Yeah, they're all over the website.
They're all over the website. They come with flashcards and stuff like that. Excellent, excellent resource. Excellent resource to have. No home should be without these.
Hey,
So thank you, Friendship Center, and thank you all. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Tell 2 friends, and I'll tell 2 friends, and
I told 2 friends.
yeah.
You didn't know your nickname?
oh, here we go.
No.
Oh.
Okay.
My dad gave him a name because when he was a little boy, he liked to sing on a drum, eh?
Still does.
So they call him It's Tukimina.
Drummer,
Tukimina, a drummer
Tukimina.
boy.
drum boy.
No wonder you sing at Christmas.
Yeah.
You really live up to your name.
Oh, yeah.
Get him out, sing,
What's that?
guys. We'll see you again.
Yeah.
And that's the show.